Hi everybody and welcome to TRP's September webinar, More Than Just a Gym, Creating a Member Experience Culture. Those of you who regularly attend our monthly webinars may recognise my voice. I'm James, a Marketing Executive here at the Retention People. I'll be facilitating today's session. Our presenter today is TRP Retention Coach Julie Allen. Many of you will be familiar with Julie, having attended previous webinars through working with her in her role at TRP or in any other point in her 13-year career across many roles within the health and fitness industry. Julie's job at TRP is to help our UK customers deliver exceptional member experiences and create raving fans through the effective utilisation of our software solutions. Today's session was first delivered at our biggest ever event back at the start of this month, Succeeding in a Changing Fitness Market. This was a day jam-packed with insight and advice from the leading minds in the health and fitness industry, including, of course, our very own Jules. Giving you a sneak peek at the value we're able to provide today from that event by bringing you this snippet of the kind of topics we talked about on the day. Those of you that have joined us before will know that we like to make sessions as interactive as possible. What we find works best is that any questions you have are typed into the chat box, which is in the dashboard on the right hand side of your screen, and sent to us, and then those are discussed at the end of the session rather than jumping in on Julie while she's presenting. So as I said, I'll collate these and we'll speak through them at the end. Just before I hand over for the presentation, I just want to check that you can all hear me and also see the title slide. You should be able to see a lovely picture of Jules there on the screen. Just to check the audio is working, something fun that we've started to do is just to get you all to send in a message on the chat box, which only Jules and I can see, just to let us know where you're joining us from. It's just interesting to see how international our audience is, and it also lets me know that everything's working and that you can hear me. I'm joining in here today from Bath in the southwest of England. Any technical difficulties during the session, just drop me a message in that chat box and I'll do my best to resolve those for you. Okay, so without further ado, I'll hand over to Jules.
Great stuff. Thank you ever so much, James. And hi and welcome everyone to today's webinar, where we will be exploring the concept that your facilities are in fact more than just a gym. As James said, I've got vast experience within the industry and have had the pleasure of working with many teams ranging from front of house, sales, health and fitness, etc. But in all honesty, one of the most striking statements I've heard was from one of my senior receptionists, who openly stated in response to some industry feedback regarding no interaction from reception that she didn't sign up for this. So you can imagine, it really got me thinking about areas in which this industry seems to continually fail in. Today, I would like to share some further findings from the TRP 10,000 research. Most of you will be familiar with the TRP 10,000 research. It's the UK's single largest study tracking over 10,000 members and their behaviours throughout their membership. Today we're going to explore, what do our customers really want by way of experience? We will look at your club's culture, how you bring your company's personality to life so that every member of your team lives and breathes your values. How do we measure and refine this? And ultimately, what are my key takeaways for delivering consistent, memorable experiences? But first, I'd like to take you back to the event James mentioned at the start. I'd like to walk you through a mini experiment that I delivered at our event. At the start of my session, I asked all delegates to stand whilst I read out a list of random words, which I then asked them to memorise. Once I had finished the list, I asked all delegates to take a seat and write down as many words as possible, without conferring, of course. I then read out the list in order and asked the delegates to stand when they heard a word that they had remembered, or take a seat if they hadn't remembered the word that I just recited. The delegates' recollection was to be expected. What I had done is I'd just taken the delegates through a traditional experimental demo used by cognitive psychologists. And here's the point. There is a particular pattern which researchers always see. This is known as the serial position effect. People most clearly remember the first thing that happened to them and the last thing. The stuff that happened in between Well, don't get me wrong, it's important, but will struggle to lodge its place in our memory if it was simply mediocre. The first and last really do matter, but these are so often the areas that are overlooked. This insight provides us with a valuable shortcut in providing great, or at least what is perceived to be great, customer experience. And here's how. The way you greet and say goodbye to your customers are your firsts and your lasts, the high points you can see here on the serial position curve. Handle them superbly and your customer will recall and will describe to others an overall exceptional experience. You'll start to hear comments such as, oh, their reception team are always so friendly, they're so helpful, etc. And they'll be able to immediately call to mind specific examples of how you were superb. Conversely, if you only excel in the middle of your interaction, you won't get the full credit for all that hard effort. So why is it this industry still seems to suffer from the disgruntled receptionist with head down, the lifeguard avoiding eye contact, the duty manager far too busy being busy to engage with members, let alone go into the gym area, or the admin staff too afraid to walk past reception and pick up that phone that's been ringing whilst a queue has formed in a heartbeat and is now heading outside the door. People won't necessarily remember what you say or what you did, but they do remember how you made them feel. And this is vital in terms of creating a seamless customer experience. So with this in mind, do our customers really value being spoken to? We wanted to understand what type of communications do over 10,000 members value. As you can see here, a significant amount of members reported value in interaction from reception and fitness teams. I'm out on the road a lot working with a cross-section of operators, front of house and gym teams. When I present this data, I'm usually met with, but members are in a rush, they don't want to talk to me at reception, or the classic line, they've got their headphones in. Could it be that our members simply weren't expecting to be spoken to, so rather than be rejected, our members enter our facilities with a plan to avoid such uncomfortable circumstances? Whatever the objection coming from your team, we cannot disregard what over 10,000 members tell us they value and frequently experience. So here we can see, with regards to reception staff speaking to me, 74% of members said that they value reception teams engaging, talking to them. But how many of the members actually receive this interaction frequently? Well, 44% said this was a frequent occurrence. If we move our attention now to the fitness team, here you can see that a staggering amount of 87% of members said they absolutely value fitness teams talking to them. But more worryingly here, only 37% report it happening frequently. Quite staggering statistics. So now we understand that our members do value being spoken to. We want to understand, well, who are we talking to? Overall, 22% of members said that reception staff always spoke to them, but 35% said they were never spoken to. Females were more likely to be spoken to than males, and age had an impact too. Reception staff were more likely to speak to older than younger members. Meanwhile, nearly half of new members reported they were never spoken to, while a third of long-standing members said they were always spoken to. There are two areas here that I think require a little more focus. So firstly, I want to draw your attention to customer ages. Our younger customers are the ones we find the hardest to retain. Yet our 25 to 34-year-olds are reporting close to 50% are never spoken to by reception staff. It's also important to note that in a typical club, the 16 to 34-year-old groups can make up between 50 to 80% of our membership base. Membership length also needs a bit more attention here. Again, we have a massive number of our new members not feeling that they are being spoken to in the first 6 months of their stay with us. And this only really drops down once they stay with us for 36 months or more. Again, I find this shocking given that 74% report that they value this type of communication. Most clubs don't truly understand that half of their members leave within the first 6 to 12 months, and many straight after their fixed term contract expires. Do you find you're in a continuous cycle of acquiring new members only to watch them leave? Could this be a result of members not feeling engaged at the first stage of every visit to your club? Now, it's impossible to move on at this point without discussing the rise and increase in technology. We're pushing more members towards join online, book online, kiosks in reception areas. but we must find a way of embracing technology and find a way of balancing the two experiences. Does your customer journey contain effective touch points to ensure, however your member chooses to engage with you, that they still consistently feel valued? This is really vital in terms of creating a consistent approach both in a single site, let alone across a group. So now we know who we talk to, let's see what impact this can have on cancellation rates. Here, we can see that fewer members retain their membership if they report never or only occasionally being spoken to. 10% more members are reported to have kept their membership after the 7-month follow-up if they reported that the reception staff spoke to them on their last visit, compared to members who say they are always spoken to by reception and were spoken to at their last visit. Members who were never spoken to and were not spoken to on their last visit cancel at a rate 2.8 times higher. This equates to an extra 21 cancelled memberships each month for every 1,000 members. Now let's look at the next fact here. The difference in cancellation rate widens further still if members who say they value reception staff speaking to them never get spoken to. This group cancel at a rate 3.4 times higher than members who value reception staff communication and always get spoken to. This equates to a loss of an additional 29 members out of every 1,000 each month. So this leads me to ask the question, is talk cheap? Well, members who say they were spoken to during their last visit are 20% less likely to cancel over the next 7 months compared to members who were not spoken to. And this is irrespective of their age, length of membership, and how often they use their club. Over 1/3 of members say reception staff never speak to them. As a consequence, they're twice as likely to cancel their membership each month compared to members who are spoken to at least occasionally. In other words, each time reception staff speak to a member rather than simply letting them walk by without any communication, the risk of them cancelling next month is halved. Can we honestly afford for our front of house teams not to engage with our members in such a way? Again, at this point, I want to bring your attention back to your customer journey and embracing technology, but ensuring that you have sufficient and effective touch points in place so you don't dilute your experience. The majority of members say they value reception staff speaking to them, some more than others, but even if they say they don't value it, our research shows they still stay longer when they are spoken to. Indeed, for every 58 members who get spoken to, 1 membership cancellation is avoided. So at this point, it's probably no surprise that interaction, talking, also features in the 4 key uplifts associated with the lowest risk of cancellation. Those 4 key uplifts are: number 1, receiving encouragement from fitness staff; number 2, conversation with fitness staff; 3, reception staff communication; and finally, number 4, meeting friends. So now we have the facts. How do we translate this into creating consistent, memorable experiences? Well, firstly, we need to start with an honest review of our club culture. The team at TRP have vast experience working in the industry, most of us as past operators, and now working with current operators, assisting in the development of their retention strategy. Yet we find that we are still following an approach in many teams that see a lot of silo working. We strongly suggest that heads of departments need to be part of the retention framework. If they're not, then they need to be. If everyone is working together in your business, the whole team can understand their role in boosting overall retention rates amongst your customers. Fundamentally, we need to ensure we all understand our part of the retention jigsaw and how it fits into the overall strategy in keeping members more active and for longer. We should all be working towards that same target. And again, it's easier said than done, but this is crucial in delivering that consistent experience that form the very fabric of your club's values. So, whilst we're sat here today, I'd like to take you on a journey. Myself and the team at TRP regularly undertake mystery visits, and it often surprises me when I present what I'm about to show the audience today, a typical experience that we find in many clubs across the UK. This sadly is still very much the norm rather than the exception. So before we get going, I have 2 questions for you. Firstly, I'd like you to think about how would you feel if this was something your members experienced on a regular basis? And secondly, whilst you're watching this webinar, could this be happening in your club as we speak? So on my way through to the gym, I enter reception. The receptionist at this point is distracted. They're not busy. It's that typical head down or turned away. They're not ready to welcome me into the facility at all. Would this happen in a hotel? I'll leave that one with you. On my way through the changing rooms, I'm ignored by the cleaner. And now this is a really interesting one here, because when I present this to teams, I'm quite often met with the reaction of, well, why would the cleaner say hi? It's not their job. It's not their responsibility. But one of my favourite stories that I'd love to share with you today was when JF Kennedy visited NASA, he went up to the janitor and asked, what's your role here? Now, do feel free to post the answer if you know the answer to this example. But for those of you who don't, the janitor replied, I'm here to put the first man on the moon. The janitor understood the role that they played in the bigger picture. I wonder if after this webinar today you return to your teams and ask the question, what is your underlying role? I wonder what they'll say to you. This is something we're going to explore a little later on the webinar. Moving on, I come through into the gym. The instructor says hi, but continues talking with colleagues, because last night was far more interesting than showing me something new today. They're sat around the gym desk. I don't feel overly welcome. I'm going to make my way through now to the free weights area, and here the PT's busy texting on their phones, so definitely no time for me. I might go and try my luck in the swimming pool now. And en route, I'm ignored by the manager. No eye contact, no smiling, simply ignores me. My experience in the pool, equally poor. Lifeguard walks past me, doesn't acknowledge me in any way. Again, this is quite often a sticking point for teams. Yes, lifeguards are there to guard the pool. I'm not expecting them to high-five me mid-front crawl, but I would expect a hello, a smile, an acknowledgement. Finishing up with my swim, I now leave the facility. The receptionist is talking to the manager. I get a goodbye, but it's said with such insincerity, it's that tick-a-box exercise. Now, would I truly value this experience? Would I value my monthly membership? Or would I at this point be finding other reasons and other ways I can spend my money every month? So let's flip this on its head. Does it really take a lot of work to change this experience? This time I come through to reception and I have a warm, friendly greeting. Now that could be anything from, hey, hi, how are you today, through to, if the receptionist is busy on the phone, eye contact, smiling. You just have a sense that you've been greeted and that you're now part of the facility. Quite often our receptionists, we know they can be very, very busy, and we need to get members through quickly, efficiently, effectively, but we can do that in a professional, warm manner. This time coming through, the cleaner says hi. As I enter the gym, the instructor comes up to me and says, let me show you something new today. Now this is fantastic. Now I'm really going to be engaged, I'm getting value, I'm going to have a challenging workout. I come through, the PT's fully engaged with me, helps me book my next session. Fantastic, I know when I'm coming back. On my way to the pool, this time the manager makes contact with me. How's my session today? Brilliant, we have an awesome conversation. And now I head through to the pool and the lifeguard doesn't stop and talk to me, but simply says, have a great swim. As I leave, the manager checks, when will I be back again? Because it truly matters to the manager and the team and ultimately my club. I feel integral to the club and that I belong here and that I want to spend my leisure time here. So how do we achieve this? To achieve this, we need to move away from working in silos and embracing a collaborative approach which seeks to consistently put the member at the heart of everything that you do. A recent UK Skills Active study revealed that only 15% of the workforce within the health and fitness industry actually work within the fitness area. Therefore, retention cannot purely be a gym thing. Again, at this point, we need to give thought to our member journey. How do we want our members to feel? If we think about the Disney experience, Disney always consistently get it so right because they understand the touch points, they understand how they want their members to feel, they understand how they want their members to recall their memories of their experience, and they therefore train and deliver consistently. So, how? How are we going to make this happen within our sites? It all starts with your company's why. What is your company's purpose? Sure, you can say more active, more often, but what does this really mean and how can you measure this to ensure you are staying true to your values? I quite often talk with operators about their values, and I'm met with a response along the lines of, sure, we have them, look, they're displayed on this poster. The poster is often located behind a door, or at worst, collecting dust on a shelf in the admin office. Once you've established and defined your company's values, we need to embed them into the day-to-day. But the challenge here often relates to staff behaviours. Staff know what they need to do, they just don't do it. So how do we lift the values from the poster on the wall into the hearts and minds of your team, which ultimately will influence behavioural change? Once defined, our behaviours should be meaningful and measurable related to your core values. Of course, you'll have KPIs which will differ for a receptionist versus gym staff versus S&T, for instance. But how do you truly measure whether or not you are creating the experience that you wish for your members to receive consistently? This can be a difficult area to measure, as we're talking about something that's intangible. One way in which many successful operators monitor and measure this is by using the Net Promoter Score, or NPS. For those of you who haven't heard of NPS, this is a measure used globally by all industries to measure true customer loyalty and ultimately business growth. I would like to share with you some feedback that has been taken from our live database of operators who apply NPS to their overall customer experience strategy. NPS is like having that cardboard cutout of your member with you every day to reinforce the areas that either require attention or confirm that you've hit the nail on the head and you're delivering and staying true to your values. First, I'm going to take you through detractor comments. Our detractors are our members who are disgruntled. They're not satisfied, they're not happy. And we've seen through previous research that detractors visit significantly less in the following 12 weeks if they aren't dealt with effectively. This, of course, we all know, ultimately leads to dropout, and then we receive that wonderful, polite cancellation claiming that they've relocated. So let me share these comments with you. These are true comments coming through from live operators at the moment. And as you can see here, comments come through such as, customer relations leave a lot to be desired, staff are rude, unhelpful. The most I've been met with is a grunt, a smile would go a long way. These members are crying out saying, I want to feel welcomed, I want to be engaged with, I want to be part of the experience. And they will voice when things aren't right. How would you feel if these comments were being made about your facility? Let's move on to where operators really do get it right and where we can start to make the intangible tangible. These are your promoters. Your promoters are your loyal, raving fans. These are the ones that will defend you if you need it. These are the members who are selling you to prospects because they believe in you so much, you share the same values. The comments we tend to see here are about staff being friendly, welcoming, atmosphere is great, there's no clickiness. Mention of lifeguards, as you can see, enthusiasm, friendly, inspiring. If I were a competitor, sure, I could compete on facilities, programming, cleanliness, etc. But here you can see the true value is tied up in the experience. The feeling that you and your team create, this is not easy to replicate, but so vital in terms of creating raving fans for our clubs. So, what can we learn from other industries? I always love this, would you like fries with that? Not a question you'd expect to be asked in a health and fitness facility, but the concept could easily be applied. Ask any coach why they work in the industry, and if you don't hear a response which includes one of, if not all of the following, I'd be asking the few recruitment questions. We want to be hearing things such as, I'm passionate about fitness, I want to help people, I want to enhance people's lifestyles, I love seeing people achieve their goals. Why can't it become the non-negotiable for our health and fitness teams to ask members, would you like to try something new today? Let me show you this. If we don't ask that question, we can have all the skills and desire to help people make positive changes, but our efforts will remain fruitless if our teams don't get out and engage with our members. Equally, how can this be applied to other areas within your club? Do all of our members of our team consistently look for opportunities to upsell, whether that's identifying the busy working mum and giving her a holiday program upon arrival? Is it asking the member, do they have change for the locker so they're not inconvenienced? Do we generate return visits by proactively booking members in for their class the following week? Or simply by asking with all sincerity, when are we going to see you again? We know that conversations that drive a commitment from a member are 15% more effective than those at best are a seer, or at worst, nothing at all. I'll try not to digress too much, but I wanted to share a recent story with you. Recently, I was at a well-known coffee chain and I stood back and observed the process. There was a warm welcome. I was asked if I'd like a cake with my skinny latte, which of course I declined. The customer journey was underway. I observed how the lady taking my order prepped the barista making the coffee. Orders were flying in and I wondered what corner would be cut to speed the process up. And to my amazement, there were no shortcuts. The lady ahead of me still had the chocolate sprinkled on her cappuccino, holders were still offered, and the experience remained consistent, but most importantly, it came through as being sincere. Yet when I considered club operations, the moment reception becomes busy, that's the moment we start to dilute our service and compromise our offering. Photos are missed, emails are missed, worse still, fast track or no induction is offered. And that leads me to ask the question, are we operationally focused or customer focused? And where is the disconnect? Why do our teams decide to compromise our service and the overall experience the moment things just get a little bit busy? So taking this forward, how do we create a memorable, lasting experience? Before we wrap up with my final thoughts for today's session, I'd like to share a few points to consider. In all honesty, all of these points here would be standalone sessions, but we really can't ignore these if we are to instill change. Firstly, recruitment. How do you recruit? Do you recruit person or position? What really matters to you from that potential candidate? Are you looking for somebody that is technically perfect or somebody who is engaging, believes in your values and is driven to deliver them consistently? I'm a strong believer that you can't train people to be nice, and that's what we really need. We need people's people within this industry to engage, encourage, etc. Point 2, training and development. Do you have a comprehensive training and development program? We all know our lifeguards can't guard the pool without attending regular training. Yet every day we unleash our teams onto the floor with the power to make or break your business. Training and retraining is simply about knowledge transfer. It won't make people do it. The only way to achieve this is to drive consistent customer experience through engagement with your teams. My third point here, internal communications. This is absolutely vital. Your team need to understand your club's why and the role that they play. Remember, we're working with Generation Y. Our teams need to understand the what's in it for me and see you as leaders walk the talk. And finally here, ultimately, as leaders, your leadership, customer experience is everything, and it starts right here with you. So my final thoughts before we open the floor for questions. To achieve the seamless customer experience, ultimately we want a team to be proud to put on a uniform every day, and this is how I firmly believe we make this happen. The P in proud is twofold. Prioritise. Make your members and team a priority. The 24/7 nature of our business can sometimes divert our priorities away from others that truly make a difference to the members' experience. People. To drive your members' experience by the member rather than by the book, it is essential to prioritise your team as individuals and as a collective. Ensure your member experience is part of daily conversations and has prime position on all meeting agendas. It still ceases to amaze me when I see AOB, customer experience. This really needs to be number one. Our teams need to be encouraged and reminded of the impact they have on a daily basis. In your next round of one-to-ones, ask your team what they think their underlying role is. If the answer isn't to ensure that members want to return within 7 days, we as leaders need to prioritise the message we're sending out to our teams. BR, recognise and reward. Unfortunately, more often than not, time is spent on managing members of the team who, for whatever reason, are underperforming. Don't get me wrong, our teams need coaching and direction, but this can often detract our attention from members of the teams who aren't just performing well, but are eager to drive the member experience and delight members. When people are demonstrating your behaviours and values that you've instilled within your club's culture, it's vital that we recognise and reinforce this. Rewarding your teams for outstanding performance doesn't need to be a complex task. Just a simple, genuine thank you can go a long way. And I mean that as a personal thank you rather than via email. Opportunities. Identify and create opportunities for your team to support their continued progression and development. There should be potential in all of our team members. We have the opportunity to inspire and create the teams that we're proud of. Are you able to measure how effective your team are at generating return visits, which ultimately supports members' behavioural change? If you can identify easily areas for improvement, then these are obvious opportunities to develop the team and continue to enhance your member experience. For you, for understand. Understand your team as individuals. Take the time to get to know your team. Then you'll get to understand their true motivations and desires. Understanding your team will enable you to identify their strengths and areas for improvement, therefore creating opportunities. Taking a genuine interest in your teams will give you a better insight into its mechanics so you can support them accordingly. And finally, delight and deliver. A proud team seek to go above and beyond to deliver first-class service. When was the last time something happened to you which was unexpected but made you feel that you were really valued as a customer? It's not an easy question to answer, yet when you have that example, it was probably only something minor that took your experience from being so-so through to exceptional, and more importantly, memorable. Delight is always in the detail, but it takes a team with pride to identify that and then deliver. As I said earlier, customer experience is everything, and it starts right here with you. Thank you for listening today. I'd now like to open up for questions.
Thanks, Jules. As Jules said, we'd now like to open up the floor to any comments, anything you'd like to share. So it's that question box on the right-hand side of your screen. Just type in there, send that across to us, and we can discuss. Definitely covered a lot today. I've overrun a little bit. So what I just want to do is, Jules, if you can click through to the contact information slide, just anyone who has to go. Here are Jules's contact details. We've covered a lot of topics. We've covered everything from those face-to-face member interactions to member feedback, specifically NPS. Jules will be more than happy, I speak on her behalf, to pick that up with you outside of today's session. Same with anyone else here at the Retention People. If you navigate to our website, then you can contact us through there. You can find more resources, etc. If you want to talk about what you do with what we've discussed today and how you implement that in your club, then we'd love to speak to you about that. So we'll just wait 5 minutes for some questions to come in. But if anyone has to rush off, then that's obviously fine. So yeah. Just for me, whilst we wait for the questions to come in, Jules, member feedback, obviously a particularly interesting one, and just the value that's locked up there. If you're not speaking to your members, or if you're speaking to your members and you're not getting that feedback back, then there's incredible amount of sort of value that you're missing out on. And also from a negative feedback point of view, where are they sharing that at the moment? That was particularly interesting for me.
Well, exactly. If they're not talking to you, they will be talking to other people, and obviously with social media being so relevant today, something just doesn't have to be quite right for that to be plastered all over social media. Again, asking your members proactively to share their experience with you reinforces the fact that you really value their experience, you value their comments. And we've seen this with all of our successful operators, that those that have NPS and use it to centralise their customer experience strategy, really, they learn a lot from it and can take that experience forwards.
And on NPS, we've had a couple of questions coming in now. So we've got one from Carrie, who's just asking what NPS stands for. So Jules, are you happy just to give a brief overview of NPS, what it is, where it comes from?
NPS is the Net Promoter Score. This was actually researched back in the 90s by Fred Reichheld. We'd love to claim it at TLP, but sadly we can't. And this is used as a true measure of loyalty. We know satisfaction isn't enough to keep our members. Our customers, sorry. We want to create raving, devoted, loyal fans. These, like I said earlier, are members that won't leave you. They'll stick with you through times of hardship, and they will certainly sing your praises when you consistently deliver. If you would like more information on NPS, the Net Promoter Score, I'd be more than happy to reach out to you after the session and discuss it in further detail.
Okay, the question from Jess, she was asking that in your presentation, Jules, you mentioned that if we ask the commitment question, they are 15%. I think, what was the 15% statistic?
That basically, rather than, and we see it time and time again, whether you're in the gym or other area of a club, yeah, hi, great, see you soon kind of thing, then we leave it to our member that have no idea of when they're coming back. Our high-risk members, they generally haven't got a pattern, they haven't got a habit. So with all of our members, we need to plant the seed. And we can do that by building relationships with our members. So for instance, James, if you and I were in a gym right now, and I'm the health and fitness coach, obviously I've just shown you some new exercises, you're about to leave, and I say, oh James, when are we going to see you again? And then James, you might say to me, I haven't given it any thought, and then I get a date out of you. And so if Saturday comes along and James, you say, oh gosh, I can't make it, I forgot, I've got to do whatever, the chances are you will return ASAP, because you'll know that you made a commitment to me because we had that relationship. And therefore we see a higher return rate from those commitment types.
So it was an extra 15% likeliness to return for a commitment interaction compared to a normal interaction, one that doesn't kind of have that call to action. And Jess, we've actually recently released a piece of our TRP 10,000 research on that. So if you haven't already read that, then I'll make sure that you've got a copy of that following today's webinar. Question or an observation from Andrea. Let me just read through this one here. So the first and send-off experience is key to the journey. Change within an organisation is difficult to embed. The best place to start is reception. Advice on making it key is welcome. Would you agree? I think you would agree with all that, that the reception is important. Again, we've got specific research on reception, don't we?
Absolutely, and in fact, increasingly, the more work I do with clubs, we tend to have reception involved with any member experience training, because they are so vital and valued so much by our members. But so often, as I said at the start, they tend to be the area that's overlooked. Again, you go into a hotel, they expect you, you wouldn't have a receptionist turned away from you. So we need to replicate some of those principles and apply it to our clubs. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Andrea. This is an area that we need to focus on as an industry, and we need to move away from that silo working so everybody understands the role in which they play in terms of the customer experience.
Okay, great. That is all the questions that we have in at the moment. Just again, in respect of time, I think we maybe wrap it up for today. But as I've said, contact details for Julia there, where all of us are on the website, and any questions you didn't get a chance to ask, or maybe anything you think of later, anything you want to share about how your club's working that you want to talk about, more than happy to pick that up after today's session. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, Jules, for presenting today, and speak to everyone soon.
Thank you very much.